warning lights on the dash, chances are it could be an issue with the diesel particulate filter. Specifically, you could be dealing with problems relating to the DPF regeneration process. Hi, I'm Haddo. In this video, we'll cover the various modes and methods used by manufacturers to achieve DPF regeneration. You'll also pick up a few tips on fault finding and find ways to extend regen periods too. DPFs are designed to reduce particulate emissions on diesel engines. They're a wall-type filter which collect the noxious soot and ash produced by diesel combustion. As the DPF collects soot and ash from the engine, eventually the exhaust flow starts to become restricted. Regeneration is the process which is used to clean the DPF and keep the exhaust flowing. Note, the principles of DPF regeneration remain the same for vehicles that use AdBlue SCR after treatment and those that don't. For an introduction to DPFs and for additional info on selective catalyst reduction and exhaust gas recirculation, please watch the earlier modules in this course. The key to successful regen is temperature. The DPF must be raised to over 600 degrees centigrade to ensure effective incineration of the sooty buildup. Note that regeneration does only remove the soot and not the ash. Ash is generally caused by high sulfur fuels, oils with high ash content, or if the engine burns oil. Now there are three types of DPF regeneration: passive, active and forced. We'll have a look at each in some detail. Passive regeneration occurs when the exhaust temperature becomes sufficiently high for the DPF to regen of its own accord. Generally, driving at motorway speeds or under high engine loads in hilly terrain or while towing can trigger passive regeneration. However, we can't always drive in the conditions that create sufficient exhaust temperatures for a passive regen. That's where the electronics take over, and it's known as active regeneration. There are three forms of active regen. The most common is dosing, where additional fuel is injected via the common rail fuel system. This additional fuel continues to burn in the exhaust, which raises the DPF temperature sufficiently for regeneration. Dosing has caused issues for many manufacturers. Excess fuel can pass the rings, causing oil dilution. This can result in rapid engine and turbocharger wear. An alternative solution is to place another injection point between the cylinder head and the DPF. This stops oil dilution, as the fuel is injected after the cylinder. Manufacturers can either use a simple injector or incorporate an air supply as well. A spark plug may also be deployed to initiate combustion. Finally, some OEMs place electronically controlled flaps in the exhaust to create additional back pressure. This generates the higher temperatures required for a regen. Sometimes a customer's regular driving habits will not support active regeneration. If this is the case, a warning light will activate once the DPF has reached a predetermined level of soot deposits. Once alerted, the driver must find a suitable road where the vehicle can be driven at speeds over 70 km per hour. The engine must be at normal operating temperature and the vehicle driven until the warning light has gone out. Failure to observe the warning light will eventually put the vehicle into limp home mode. If driving conditions are not conducive to active or passive regeneration, then a forced regeneration must be performed. With some vehicles, a forced regeneration can only be achieved using a scan tool, while other vehicles may have a forced regeneration button. When conducting a forced regen, the vehicle must be in a well-ventilated area with the engine at normal operating temperature and the park brake applied. Once forced regen is activated, the engine revs will increase automatically. A forced regen will blow lots of smoke and take at least 20 minutes to complete. But beware, a DPF with a high soot loading can take much longer. And remember, don't breathe in the fumes from the regen and don't perform this task in a grassed area. If warnings about regenerating the DPF are ignored, the ECM will derate or shut down the engine to prevent damage. If a DPF reaches this stage, It must be removed and either cleaned or replaced. There are several types of off-vehicle DPF cleaners available, and basically, you get what you pay for. Some provide excellent results, while others are not so great. Sometimes you'll come across a vehicle that just won't complete a regeneration. So what do? Do a scan of the management system for any DTCs. Faults in the fuel, intake and exhaust systems, or an engine passing oil into the DPF will cause issues. The DPF has pressure sensors on each side of the filter. Make sure they're not blocked. And if the system has flaps in the exhaust, check that they're not seized up, as that's common. The intake systems are complex these days. Make sure they are not restricted due to EGR issues and have no signs of oil. And don't overlook the cooling system. Remember, cooling temperature will influence exhaust temperature. From my experience, unsuitable driving habits and lack of understanding cause the most DPF regen faults. Understand how the DPF systems work and educate the driver. They may have to change their route to work a couple of times per week to initiate a passive or active regen. Use a good quality engine oil with the correct viscosity and service classification for the engine. Adhere to service schedules and check the oil level regularly. Remember, you may have to have more frequent oil changes depending on driving conditions. This is especially relevant for vehicles that use dosing, as it's not uncommon for the oil level to increase significantly due to oil dilution. Some vehicles may benefit by fitting a catch can. This will not only help your DPF, but it'll also keep your intake much cleaner too. DPF regen injection systems need to be cleaned frequently. These are the ones after the cylinder head and before the DPF. An ultrasonic cleaner works best. And remember, if the DPF has been subjected to high levels of ash or repeated regeneration requests have been ignored, it can't be cleaned and will need to be replaced. I'm Haddo. Keep training and thanks for watching.